Good morning. Having flown in from San Francisco last night, I am trying to wake up my brain and my eyes and say hello, good morning. A couple of good coffees, cups of coffee have helped me to be here, hopefully fully awake for this exciting opportunity. I love being here today. I thank you very much for the honor of inviting me. Well, multiculturalism and living in a multicultural environment and society is the history of my life. I was born in Chile, yes, country of minors, as you know now. And at the age of 2, my father decided to acquire a graduate degree in Germany. So here he moved with his small family of 3.5 to Germany. First language is Deutsch, ja, ich spreche Deutsch. And then after that, he completed his graduate studies. We returned to Chile. And at age 23, 24, important changes happened in Chile. One of them is I met my husband, Argentinian, me raised Catholic, he raised Jewish, and we decided that we are moving to the United States. So, in short, I have lived in 3 continents at different times in my life. I've learned a lot from that. And sometimes I think I've gained tremendously, but I also know the losses. I call immigration sort of a lemon that you have to learn to make lemonade with. Because you leave your family behind, you learn everything. Again, the streets that were familiar to you are not there any longer. The comfort levels that, where you move around are not there anymore. So in a society where we see more and more and larger movements of people migrating from one place to another, which is, by the way, part of history. All of us sitting here today, if you think as to how and why you arrived here today, you will have to agree with me that probably somebody migrated to this place, and before them, others migrating to other places. We are, in that sense, we share with any living being this thing about moving around and finding sometimes where the grass is greener, or where we find that love of our life, or we survive if there is a major event or a war, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to share with you today are my learnings about culture, how it applies to a multicultural society, and particularly how it applies to a multicultural America. And of course, this is highly relevant today because the census data will be released shortly. Very soon, the president will receive the final, important, definite data for the census 2010. And what we know, thanks to our friends, demographers who've been preparing the data for us, is that one of the biggest surprises will be how multicultural America has become, how exponential. When I talk about multicultural, I'm talking about African Americans, Latinos, and Asians, which are the largest cultural segments. And there are others, of course, but that's where we talk about. Most of my work is in marketing, and therefore that's the angle I'm going to give to this presentation, although there are many, many more implications to what it means to be in a multicultural society. The opportunities are huge. They're very big and important. The challenges as well. So the question is, are we ready for a multicultural society? Are you ready for a multicultural society? So I want to share with you some of the snippets of data I've been able to gather from my friends in the business and show you what we expect will look like, what the census will tell us. The layer on, the colored layer, right, that we have there, the bar, represents the multicultural consumer. You can see it's quite obvious that the trend of growth of that particular group is exponential. It goes on into the future. The first one is Latinos, the pink color. In the middle, we have African Americans, and then we have Asians. The growth will be there. Why? Because we are younger as a population versus the white non-Hispanic that, we are aging. We have the baby boomers, and that growth is slowing down. As you know, you're having fewer babies than we Latinos, that it's part of our culture to have many babies. Same with African Americans and other groups. And therefore, I call it a gift to America because we are bringing youth, we are bringing energy, we are bringing new labor, and also consumers, because the more children we have, when there is need to bring food to the table, new and bigger cars, and so on and so forth, we are also stimulating the economy. So what we know is that the census will say 309 million new people in the United States. That's the size that we have. It represents almost a 10% growth over the previous census, 10%, which means 27.6 million new people. Now, I'm going to have the effect of coffee. 27.6 million new people may sound huge for you. It's only slightly less than a 10% growth, but if you are corporate America today, and you look at that number, and you compound that growth rate on an annual basis, it's only a 0.94% growth. It's less than 1% growth per year. So if you want to grow your sales, you know that with a 1% growth in 10 years, no business is really growing. This is one reason why looking at the subsegments of the population is so relevant, and that's why the value of multicultural marketing, the opportunity to really, I'm actually calling it business sustainability, where that growth is going to come from for your business and your brand is going to be from the multicultural segments. Why? Because the good news is not only we have growth and robust growth with these population segments, but we also have increased income growth. Purchase power has grown dramatically, and it will continue well into the future. I want to clarify here when we talk about, income growth with the multicultural consumers, we're not talking like we're going to be making more money than the rest of the world. No. Historically, income for Hispanic, African American, and Asian families tended to be lower than the overall population. So what we are talking about is really closing a gap. We are becoming more middle America. We have more people being educated. We are seeing people having increased salaries. And therefore, they become also greater opportunities as consumers, because the purchase power is greater. Selig Center for Economic Studies just released a few days ago the latest data on the purchase power for Latinos and others, and they have Latinos today at $1 trillion. $1 trillion, it would make us like the 14th economy in the world. And for African American, Asian, and Native Americans, it's another $1.6 trillion. So if you are in business and you want to grow your business today, that's where the growth is going to be. Now, for some of us who've been in the multicultural business the past 10, 20 years, this is no news. Many of the successful corporations in America have learned how to do it, and I'm lucky, blessed to have worked with terrific brands from Procter & Gamble, Kraft, PepsiCo, Honda of America, Time Warner, and many others, on how to take advantage of this opportunity, how to grow that opportunity. And I came with this technique called in-culture marketing, because from my personal experience, I realized that if I can talk to somebody in their own language, in their own culture, transparently, with synchronicity, we can really communicate. And we can do it by respecting the consumer. I never think it's a nice thing that you get a business one time and you never want to go back to that restaurant or that store because you were not treated well or somebody was following you and so on and so forth. So respect is a very important part of this methodology, understanding the individual as a whole person. What is the technique about in culture? It's a step-by-step methodology that capitalizes on those cultural differences. For example, as a Latina mother, when my daughter wanted to play soccer as a child, me coming from a South American country, you say, soccer never, that's for boys, it's not for girls, I don't want you to do it. So I realized how we are always in conflict between me trying to be the best mother I can and how can she be part of American society. So it is in this tension that many times we can use as a message, as a narrative to talk about our particular brand and consumer product, because I can put and tell the story within that particular context, make it interesting. If I tell in a commercial about a mother saying, no, you cannot play soccer, you bet everybody will remember it. So, the in-culture approach takes step by step, brand by brand, depending on what we are selling, to understand how that brand and product lives in the life of the specific consumer. And what we find, which may be totally common and practice for you in one culture, is not like that for other. So that's what we are talking about. It's based on culture, and culture is sort of an invisible bubble we grew up with, without knowing, when our mother held us in her arms for the first time and sang a lullaby to us, the way we were put to bed, the scent of that room, the grandmothers and aunts and uncles and everybody was there, and what foods they fed you. Without knowing, we are creating that invisible bubble that is our culture, that I call it programming. So programming, culture is the programming that we acquire as we grow up that sets up our values, beliefs, dreams, expectations, and the chain reaction begins. And this is crucial for marketing communications. Programming creates beliefs. What is good or bad is culturally driven. Beliefs create attitudes. Attitudes creates feelings. Feelings create actions. And guess what? Actions create results. In other ways, the more and the better I understand the culture of a particular consumer, the more granular I can talk to that person, the more transparent I can make my message look like and feel like and communicate, chances are I'm going to be more successful. So connecting in culture is sort of the portal to have a direct, successful communication with multicultural consumers. By the way, I've found that this works also for everybody, not just multicultural consumers. Overall, when you look at, in research we study, where do communications messages go usually in terms of marketing promotions? They tend to go either to the head, information about a product, or to the pocket, how much cheaper, what the cost is. But we have learned that if you want to have that long-term relationship with a consumer, you have to add the whole person. You have to make it emotional. It has to include the entire person. And doing research for my last book, suddenly it dawned on me that it was written in front of our face. How come we didn't see it before? Emotions stands for E, the symbol of energy, large E, plus motion. So if I can really touch your heart with respect, with something that is relevant for you, that will be memorable for you, of course you will move, you will create movement. So that's where I call this also gaining share of hearts. If we can do it right, a brand not only has penetration at the market level, but it also has a piece of my heart. They're brands that we really love. They've done something good, and we are willing to buy and patronize their stores, their products, everything. So a little bit of a case study about the Hispanic Latino market. If you took a second to travel with me together to Japan, let's imagine for some magic reason all of us have to live in Japan. And I choose Japan because I'm sure not too many of you are fluent in Japanese, have not known more or a lot about Japanese food. So let's imagine that you and all of us have to move to Japan with our families, with our kids, our grandmas. We have to take them with them, and we have to put food on the table, and we have to find a job, and we have to find a hospital and a clinic and deal with emergencies and insurance issues and all that. Hello? How would you do it if you do not speak the language? You don't even understand how streets are laid out in that city. And I choose specifically Japan because a lot of the immigrants in the Latino population have not had the opportunity to have education past the 5th, 6th, or 7th grade. So for them, it is that kind of being in the blind. Wouldn't it make sense then if I am a corporation to provide information in language? Wouldn't you like to find your loved brands in, let's say, Tokyo or Kyoto or whatever, or have an 800 number where you can speak in English and say, I have an emergency with my family, I really need to get there, how do I do it? So once you put yourself in your shoes of immigrants, you begin to say, it makes sense that if we have such a large group of people who lived in another society, and the reasons why it's a topic for another TED presentation, but for now, we just know we are here, and I want you as a consumer. So Hispanic consumers today, this is the latest data for the new census, represent 16% of the total population, 50 million plus 4 million people in Puerto Rico. with a purchase power of 1 trillion, and again, this is purchase power after taxes, projected to grow to 1.5 trillion in only 5 years. And we represent of that 10% growth of the total population growth for the total United States, we represent 50% of the new people, new residents. 1 out of 4 babies born today in the United States are born to Latino mothers, 20%. Fast forward 20 years from now, those are your graduate students. Those are your future workers. So we can retire. We have to make sure these kids go to education, go through, have the opportunity to become civically engaged, be a part of a healthy society, because they will be there when you and I need to move on to better and bigger things. Today, the Latino market concentrates mostly in key urban areas, very, very large, centralized areas. However, the new census will show that this is not the case any longer. There's tremendous growth throughout the United States. You're going to find Latinos in places you would have never guessed before. The generational perspective is my cake chart, I call it, is to help us understand that the Latino market, because we have migrated at different waves, some of us arrived, as a child, recently, others have been here most of their lives, then we have our children, second generation immigrants, and then there is third and fourth, fifth, 20th generation Latinos, and they tell me, Isabel, please make sure you remind people that some of us were here and the border migrated over our heads. We haven't moved. So when we talk about the Latino market, we are not talking about one monolithic market. It's very diverse, and we need to make decisions like, should I communicate in English? Should I communicate in Spanish? Bilingual? And all of the above are real and needed and useful. It makes no difference. It just you need to know when to use each of these particular languages to address either the more acculturated, the first generation, people who just arrived, or people who have been second, third generation, therefore are familiar with your brands and can move on. In every touch point, every time you communicate with a consumer, you want to make sure that it is done in culture with respect with that particular consumer segment, be it Mexican or be it from Puerto Rico, and so on and so forth. You find us online everywhere, by the way. We're navigating the web in many ways. Our nostalgia fantasies, if you were again back in Japan, wouldn't you like to find the products that you really enjoy eating? So we have retailers who are very smart and know how to take advantage of the nostalgic factor. And if you want to reach the really grassroots, the community who just arrived, there are methods to do that. So you have a lot of expertise to be able to communicate with all of them. This is an example of going to the grassroots, the smallest shops, independent shops, using Spanish language newspapers that are local, and having a sponsor like PepsiCo provide free health clinics. We have integrated larger shows like the ALMA Awards, that is the Latino Oscars, sponsored by many, many brands, again, to show that we are part of America and that we are here to contribute to this great nation. Thank you very much.